This is Bloomberg Businessweek with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
So you might have missed this just before the new year, but our own Bloomberg Pursuits team came out with the best museum exhibitions of 2023, which span more than 400 years of material with virtually every artistic medium, painting, sculpture, photography included, all of it. We're talking Vermeer in the Netherlands.
I think in the Rijksmuseum.
Ah, very nice.
Yeah.
Basquiat in Switzerland, Mark Rothko in Paris, and more. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, but what about more contemporary artists, those who are alive and creating art today? We thought it would be great to check in on that world in the business of art. For that, we go to Marine Tanguy, the founder and CEO at MTArt. It's a talent and creative agency that represents contemporary artists around the world. She joins us this afternoon/evening for her on Zoom from London. She's also the author of an upcoming book, The Visual Detox: How to Consume Media Without Letting It Consume You.
Which I've been teasing because she's got some views on social media. Maureen, welcome. So good to have you here with Tim and myself here on Bloomberg Businessweek. Before we get into it, tell us a little bit more about your company, what you do, the kind of clients you're working with or artists you're working with, and then maybe clients that you kind of put them together. Because you've been around almost for 10 years here now, I think about 9 years.
Yeah, it's been 15 years in the sector and the company is almost 9 years old. So if you think of the way talents are represented in music, film, and sports, they will have the top talent agencies. Most of them will be in Los Angeles, in fact. WME, UTA, or CA will have shaped the careers of the most incredible talents. We were in a very traditional sector where the core relationships with the talents were selling the artworks, but there was nothing else in terms of building up the careers, developing new revenue streams, enlarging the agencies. And that's very much where we saw the opportunity to build the first talent agency and start creating not just the sale of works, but expanding onto building public art project, brand collaboration, digital projects, entertainment deals for visual artists, which was very, very much brand new at the time.
That's so different than how a traditional artist is represented? No, I mean, there's like a gallery that sells art. Why is it so? Why is it? Talk to me about the transition to the new way that you described.
The traditional relationship is with the object, and I think our relationship is with the talent. And it's the idea that you can, in the same way you can take a bet on an entrepreneur or a musician or an actor, you're basically betting that talent. We're thinking that you can do the exact same in our sector. And also the fact that if you're looking at, you mentioned some of the museum exhibition, but some of the top artists nowadays don't just do traditional artworks on walls. Like an Ai Weiwei will be doing your movie deal and also your collaborations. And same with Jeff Koons, same with Kusama. So the definition of what it means to be successful as an artist has also expanded over the past 10 years, which has enabled for a business like ours to strive.
So talk to us, though, then about what you hope to do when you're working with an artist. And I love the idea that you're working maybe with unknowns. I remember sitting with Eli Broad, a well-known art collector. You mentioned Jeff Koons and others. And he loved younger artists that before they were unknown, and he liked supporting them and cultivating them. And it sounds like that's something that you guys certainly work a lot in.
Yeah, so I feel, first of all, it's good to be aware that the talent diversity in the sector is pretty low. So we wanted to make sure to contribute to the studio costs of the artists and put a team behind them so that we could enable people, not from the ones who could afford it, but at large, to become a talent in the sector. And that's very much why we were very passionate about that. After this, I would say there's a thrill. Raven D. Clark is about to launch a project in Alabama that the New York Times had just released. It will be the largest sculpture park dedicated to permanent works of art on slavery and reassessing slavery. She's 27. That contract is $2.2 million. And that's, for 27 years old, is a game changer. And we wanted to be a place where you didn't have to wait 50 plus, and you could come from all types of backgrounds and land deals that would be game changing and could ultimately launch you in doing as many incredible projects as you want to do.
What advice would you have for just regular people who want to understand the art world better and they just see it as such an inaccessible place? Like, how does somebody know, what art they should buy? Is it just when they're, the things that get the headlines or the huge auctions from Christie's and more?
I think it's, there's first of all the idea of taste and the superior taste, which has been because for many, many decades, you would only be teaching the upper middle class or upper class, and I speak from more of a British side, but there will be an idea that this will be, you will only teach a few people to know about art. So I think first of all is to develop knowledge into it. And you mentioned the book. For me, like, you live in a visual world, you consume 500 to 600 images a day. Unless you're blind, you're very much immersed into a visual world. So first of all, getting knowledgeable about this visual world is really important. And art is a part of the visual world. And second, to know that there has been so many psychological and financial barriers that's been put in place for you to think it's not for you. And in the same way that I think some of the financial markets feels very inaccessible in their language and in how to become literate about them, I think the art world feels the same way. Not coming from partially that background, I can say that you can definitely self-educate. You can read a lot. There's now loads of different media, like the art newspaper, like an ArtNet and others that are very good on an educational resource. But also there's more and more books being published on what does the art market actually looks like and how do you navigate it. So knowledge, getting knowledge first and foremost.
Yeah, and especially when I think about a younger or an artist that's just starting out, like if you are smart and do the research and kind of understand the markets and maybe understand an individual, their work, you can make it. If you want to invest, you can start in an unknown more easily, and just be a little bit patient. Hey, you mentioned your new book. It's upcoming. I think it's out in the summer. I do want to ask you about that. Tim and I watching a TED Talk that you did specifically a few years ago. Your book is The Visual Detox: How to Consume Media Without Letting It Consume You. You liken social media to eating junk food, and I would kind of agree in many ways. There's a lot of stuff out there, and it doesn't necessarily make you feel good, or it's good for you, and there's a lot of misinformation. This book, what is your goal with it?
I think it's like the fish in the water. We are in a visual world and we don't realize we are in a visual world in the sense that 65% of us are visual learners. We actually learn through visuals much better than through text. We get bombarded all day long, whether it's on the streets, whether it's through the digital, with images, but we haven't been taught, we have been given very little visual education and we haven't been taught how to get around this visual world. So it's to first and foremost try to comprehend it. Like, what is this visual world? Why do we get bombarded all day long? How do we really want to get bombarded with mainly the type of narrative we get bombarded with? How do we get involved? How do we get to develop visual critical thinking? I mean, if you think of the rise of AI, that visual critical thinking is going to be so key, especially with misinformation being on the rise. So then second is that visual critical thinking and those toolkits to develop it. And then to be more participative, to shape it as a world that you actually, want to see more of. And being aware that actually you can contribute to that visual language or that visual world around you. And there's a fear, again, in the same way as your question towards the art world, that you can't really contribute to it. You're just having to kind of be on the receiving end of those hundreds of images. Our idea is that you can contribute to it and you can shape it.
All right, we're going to unfortunately have to leave it on that note.
So hard. It's so hard to live in that world where you're like, you need to rely on social media for your job.
Yeah,
and this is certainly Maureen does too.
Yeah,
but also feel like it's also like it's also like junk food, truly.
As my dad,
everything on the weekends, I have to turn it all off.
Everything in moderation. Like,
yeah.
And I certainly do. Maureen, I know the book, it's either going to come out, I saw summer,
later
but
this
maybe
year,
spring later, but hopefully you will come back once it is out, and we can talk a little bit more about that, because I think it's a very provocative and relevant conversation. Maureen Tanguy, she is founder and chief executive officer of MTArt, joining us on Zoom from London.